Chapter 2. The peaceful crackle of the fire, the nice, frosty breeze through the flames, and the screams of the panicked and the fearful. Millie awoke to the same frozen nightmare under a partly cloudy and moonlight sky. Gorge was sitting next to her, cooking some strange kind of meat. "Couldn't sleep through the night, huh, Pinky?" Gorge asked over the sizzling meat. "What's happening?" Millie questioned, trying to be as alert as possible. Gorge teared off a piece of meat and tossed it to her. She took a bite, then scarfed it down while waiting for an answer. "Been going on for a little bit," Gorge replied. "People just lost the patience and stormed the gate, demanding answers." He motioned towards the scene. "Look how well it's turning out for them." Millie saw that was an understatement. Some people were desperately clinging to the fence and gate, tears in their eyes. Others were not so lucky as they laid in the snow, ice frizzling over them like death itself. "Who could blame them, though?" Gorge continued. "No answers for hours, and people sit like it's going to change." "Where do you get the food?" Millie asked. "Me and a couple others were hunting." Gorge nodded. "Some of those people are savages. They were strangling creatures as big as bears to death." Millie gave a heavy gulp. Whether it was her food or her fears, Gorge didn't know. "Anyways," Gorge continued, "just relax. I'm sure we'll get some answers soon." It didn't take long for those answers to come. It was getting a bit brighter as the early morning was coming in. Still, Millie was about to drift back to sleep until there was a loud crackling sound that got her attention. Millie slowly rose to look and saw that the gate was creaking open. Multiple groups started to crowd around the gate. Gorge shook her, seeing if she was awake. "Here we go," he muttered. They both got up and started to follow the group inside. Past the gate was a straight path that was completely void of anything but snow. Maybe a bit over a kilometer out was the first wall to the ward. The narrow path didn't provide enough room for the group of the couple hundred, so they began to disperse through the snow. That was a mistake. There was a loud boom, and one unlucky soul's body flew through the air and slammed into the snow. That startled Millie to her full attention. Someone from the front called something out, but the ringing from the explosion was all Millie could hear. "Landmines through the snow. Probably," Gorge whispered. "Probably gonna get cramped again." And so it did. People shoved and yelled into one another, trying to stay on the path. Millie pulled on Gorge, thinking it would be better to have more room at the back. "Not gonna happen," Gorge muttered, knowing what she was thinking. "There's 2 black guards behind us. Don't know where the hell they came from, but I'm not too thrilled to go dance with them." There was another large boom and Millie gulped. She decided to suck it up and go with Gorge's idea. The pace was slow, but things started to get more chaotic. The black armored guards were pushing the rear of the group. Some of that group pushed back, but the guards were like a brick wall. The guards didn't hesitate. As soon as the group showed retaliation, they raised their rifles and fired. 2 people dropped. The rest took a step back. The guards executed the 2 that dropped without a word. The gunshots sent a panic throughout the crowd. Someone grabbed Millie by the shoulder, and Gorge repaid that individual with a strike to the face. "We need to get some room," Gorge said quickly. "Come on." Millie grabbed onto Gorge's coat, and he moved them through the crowd, fighting anyone that got in his way. He wasn't going towards the front of the group, but instead towards the minefield. "Not good," Millie muttered. "Hey, just sprinkle a little trust my way," Gorge assured her. "It'll be fine." They broke out of the group and onto the untouched snow. No one bothered to grab them, but Gorge yelled, "Ears!" as he tossed a steel cylinder out. Millie frowned, not quite knowing what he was up to, which led to her losing her hearing for the second time today. The bottle hit the snow and exploded, blinding Millie and sending a shrieking ring in her ears. Gorge pretty much dragged her to where the mine used to be. Her vision returned. She saw some people making similar strides. Then she saw a kid younger than her get tossed overhand from the group. To Millie's horror, the kid hit the snow and disappeared in the yellow flash of the mine. Traces of him scattered throughout the snow. An arm landed a meter away from Millie, and she thought she was going to be sick. 2 people stumbled out of the group. A 30-something man with a goatee and brown hair, as well as a girl in her early 20s with long, light purple hair. The girl was shanking some guy that was grabbing onto her. while the goatee man bolted to where the boy would have landed. The guy that was on the girl dropped to the snow in a bloody mess. A moment later, she was back at the goatee man's side. A giant man towering at 6'6" pushed past the group and faced the goatee guy and the girl. "Ace," the giant growled over the noise of the crowd. The goatee guy tapped the girl on the shoulder and moved past her. "That's the name, but I'm not taking any autographs at this time." The giant launched a wad of spit that landed on the goatee guy's boot. "And I'm not accepting either," Goatee said with a bit of disgust as he took a couple of steps back, wiping his boot in the snow. "I'm gonna enjoy this." The giant charged. The girl took a step aside and started rummaging through her bag. She scattered some items in the snow kind of between her and Millie, while Goatee rushed his opponent. The giant threw a punch that Goatee easily ducked, but the uppercut cracked his jaw and sent him into the air. Like a volleyball, the giant spiked Goatee into the ground with another punch. One of the items the girl threw found its mark and a mine exploded. The girl quickly went to go occupy the new spot as the giant continued his attacks on Goatee. "Let's go see if we can make a new friend," Gorge suggested, and dragged the shell-shocked Millie towards the light-haired girl. The girl was close enough where Gorge was fairly confident he wouldn't step on any unwelcome surprises. "Room for a couple more?" The girl took one look over them and shrugged. "You seem like a competent man." "Well, that's the best compliment I've gotten all day," Gorge replied with a charming grin. But the girl ignored him, turning back to the fight at hand. Goatee had lost even more ground, getting closer and closer to unknown territory. He would dodge most strikes, throwing a blow here and there that did absolutely nothing. Then, after taking another step back, he changed tactics. The giant threw a punch similar to his first one, which Goatee ducked, but instead of catching the uppercut that was coming for his chin, Goatee spun to the giant's side and launched a devastating kick on the side of the foe's leg. The blow sent the giant to his knee, but with lightning-fast speed, he spun to face Goatee, sending another punch his way. Goatee jumped, barely avoiding the strike. He twirled into a spinning kick that cracked the giant's face. Goatee landed saying, "That's the signature," and went into a backwards somersault, finishing off with, "And don't wipe it off." The giant spun from the blow and fell face first into the snow, vanishing in a yellow light of fire. "Woo!" Goatee screamed as he sprung from his somersault. "Hope one of those pieces gets back to your family, my man." "What a prick," Gorge muttered as Goatee walked towards them. "The one and only," the girl muttered. Millie's hands were pale from tightly gripping Gorge's coat. She wanted this madness to be over with, to be in a nice, warm place with her family again. "We got some more party people over here?" Goatee asked. "Hey, big man, is that pink little button your sister?" Millie gulped. "Ace, was it?" Gorge asked in a calm voice. "Ace Craft, at your service," Goatee replied with a bow. "Fuck off, Ace," Gorge growled, and Millie winced in fear. Ace nodded. "Bold. Respectable." He put up his hands. "I'll oblige." "I'm Illis," the girl cut in. Gorge sighed. "Name's Gorge." "The girl's Millie." Millie just nodded. "Okay, now that we got that out of the way, what the hell are we gonna do?" Ace asked, looking at the crowd. The crowd hadn't made much progress. The front had come to a stop as fights broke out throughout the group. A couple people broke free from the front and sprinted to the open gate of the ward. Others had dropped from injury or illness. "No one else seems to be in the mood to fuck with us, at least," Ace noted. Millie looked over at Illis, whose hand was bloody. Not her blood, but the blood of the people she stabbed with what looked like a very sharp rock. Millie's face paled even more. Illis caught her eye and followed her gaze. She shrugged. "Not very orthodox, but it gets the job done," Illis said. "That's for sure," Ace replied. "I'm content with sitting on our own little island here," Gorge answered, "until things get moving again." "If things get moving again, this could last for fucking hours," Ace countered, cracking his fingers with a stretch. "This is already a goddamn clusterfuck." "Can't argue with you there," Gorge agreed. "Why can't they just move forward?" Millie whispered. "The gate to the ward is opened, and they're just letting people in." "Those gunshots sent everybody into a panic," Gorge replied. "With this trick of a tight space that most don't want to get out of, it's a good recipe for disaster." "You know you could just call it a clusterfuck," Ace chimed in. "Whatever." "Hence the superiority of man," Illis growled. Near the front of the river of people, a kid who looked like he was in his late teens climbed on top of a larger man's shoulders. The kid had caramel skin and blue eyes. His hair was black with silver streaks going through it, and he carried what looked to be a red saxophone. He set the sax on his lips and played a couple of notes that traveled to every single person. Almost everybody stopped what they were doing. Even the black guards at the end of the group halted for a moment. "Okay," the kid began as he looked to the group behind him. "I know we've made some great progress in the last 10 minutes, beating the shit out of our fellow man and all, but can we just maybe save that for another time? I kind of want to get this concentration camp tour going and maybe not freeze to death." He turned to the front. "At least you guys, we're smart enough to get organized and move a couple 100 meters, right? Yeah?" No one moved. "Okay, cool." He turned to the back again. "Well, carry on, I guess, you bunch of degenerates." And with that, the kid descended into the river of bodies once more. People seemed to get their sense back and started to move in a bit of a more organized way. There was still a fight here and there, but it went smoothly. After a quick discussion, Millie's group decided to morph back into the end of the mob. The guards at the back weren't bothering anybody, and Millie managed to get through the gate that led into the ward. She was still cold, but the icy breeze was gone due to the stone walls. She was feeling a tad bit better now. The group was led to a large yard, where the guards yelled for them to get into rows. Each spot had a designated letter and number etched into the ground. Millie got to the spot at the beginning of her row, B1. Gorge was B2, Illis was B3, Ace was B4. The A row was in front of Millie, and there were way more rows of people behind her. Each row had to have at least 30 people, maybe more. There were 12 wooden stands built in front of the columns of people, up against the massive stone wall. The stone wall was about 20 meters high, with guards scattered all over the top. There was one person up there that stood out from the rest. Millie could barely make her out. She was an older woman with ivory skin and blonde hair that was starting to show some gray. This woman pulled out a whistle and blew it, grabbing everyone's attention. "Welcome, I suppose," the woman spoke. Her voice came down clearly, echoing off the walls. "This facility is called Missionary Ward. I am and will be known as the Warden." "Like a prison," Ace muttered. "Speaks wonders of our situation." "Each of you have different backgrounds," the warden continued. "Thieves and murderers of the like. Others are more innocent, like orphans and such. Yet, you all share one strong similarity. You're all unwanted in society." That struck a chord with Millie, feeling sadder than ever. "You are here to maybe make some use out of your miserable lives." She paused for a couple seconds, letting that sink in. No one made a sound. She continued. "I will be announcing 12 names. If you hear your name, take point at the top of one of the stands." She went through the list of names from memory without missing a beat. Soy Young, Philip Marsh, Ida Vance, Penny, Stanley Summers, Sly, Shay Eisen, Hammerburst, Autumn Lightning, Richard Campsine, Cloud McVaughn, and Chai Weblock. The people started to move to their assigned stands. There was quite the difference in age between the people called as well, ranging from Penny, a girl as pale as a ghost with dirty gray hair. She looked like she might be 9 years old, maybe younger. Then there was Philip Marsh, a bald ebony man that had to be around 80 years old. Philip was the last one to get to his stand. The warden spoke again. "Now we will be dividing you into groups with a schoolyard pick, starting with the number 1 stand. Each leader will take turns picking members 2 at a time. Get to it." And so it began. The leaders called out individuals by the name of the space they were on. Philip pointed to one of the closest people in the row. It was a young, energetic blonde girl, and she became his spokesperson. Millie felt sorry for the old man. He definitely felt out of place with all the other young leaders around him. The process took forever. Ace, Illis, and, to Millie's dismay, Gorge were selected early on. Ace went to Group 9, which was led by Autumn Lightning. Illis went to Hammerburst Group 8. Gorge went to Group 6, which was led by Sly. Millie noticed that Sly was the same individual that played the red saxophone on the big man's shoulders outside the ward. Millie could see Gorge whispering into Sly's ear, maybe making suggestions for the team. However, those suggestions didn't seem to include her. She wanted to be on Sly's team and, more importantly, on Gorge's team. Gorge was one of the only people she knew, and he really did look out for her all day. She didn't like Ace in the slightest. He was kind of a creep, and she was simply scared of Illis. The group of the unselected continued to thin. Gorge once again whispered into Sly's ear, but this time, Sly looked up at him incredulously. Gorge shrugged, and Sly just rolled his eyes. He then called position B1, Millie's spot. The clump of worry in her chest disappeared for the time being as Sly motioned her to come over. She made her way to her new team and by Gorge's side. Gorge gave her a pat on the head, which bothered her slightly. She never liked the childish nicknames or motions that went her way. A few rotations of picks later, the selection had finished. The warden, not having moved a muscle from her spot, spoke again. Each team now has 36 members, making our total 432. Congratulations. Guards will now escort you to your barracks. That is all. The warden walked away from the wall and disappeared. It took Millie's group 10 minutes to arrive at their new home. As soon as they arrived, the guards left without saying a word. The barracks were nothing special. It was just a gray square building that was made out of concrete, with really no other options. The group made their way inside. The inside was nothing special either. Most of the space had bunk beds lined throughout, with an open space to the right of the room. It was at least warmer in here, and Millie realized for the first time that she wasn't shivering. People scattered around the barracks, talking with one another and claiming their spots. I guess we might as well find a spot to set up, Gorge recommended. Do you know anyone else here? Millie asked. Okay, hey, listen up. Sly yelled over the noise as he jumped up on one of the bunks before Gorge could answer. Everyone quieted down. Now, clearly I've selected quite the cast of characters, and I do hope I haven't picked any scumbags here. Hey, do you know what the fuck's going on? One person yelled. Hell no, Sly laughed. All I know is that we should probably get organized before more crazy shit happens. Why are you our leader? A small kid by Millie asked. The kid gave Millie a weird look and smiled. Sly shrugged. Well, my music speaks for itself. And that got a chuckle from a couple people, lightening the mood. Let's try to be friendly with one another. I'm guessing we'll be stuck like this for a bit. Come on, Gorge told Millie. Let's see if we can find our own spot. Okay, Millie agreed, leaving the strange kid behind without a word. They found an unoccupied bunk up against a wall in one of the corners of the barracks. You should probably take the bottom bunk, Gorge suggested. Why? Because I'm shorter? She asked defensively. Not in particular. You'll have a bit more privacy, though, Gorge pointed out. Not really. Millie didn't see his point. Well, my bunk has a blanket and a sheet. That can be used to cover the side and the head of the bed, Gorge explained. And your blanket can cover the foot of the bed. It's like a fort. Kids like you like forts, right? I feel like my childhood died when I got here, Millie said dryly. Okay, Gorge said defeatedly. Just trying to light the mood. Millie winced, not meaning to offend him. But I like the idea, though, she said quickly. Just then, Sly walked over. Seems like you guys are settling down nicely. He looked at Millie. I don't believe I've introduced myself, he said while extending his hand. Name's Sly. Millie shook his hand. Millie, she stammered. I didn't get a bloody handshake, Gorge pointed out. Sly shrugged. Sometimes a man just wants to make a good impression. But Gorge, Sly looked him directly in the eyes. There's no need to beat around the bush with me. Gorge rose an eyebrow. I'm not following. Whispering clearly exceptional people that I should pick to build my trust in your eyes, then whispering Miss Millie's spot later down the line to make sure I wouldn't disagree. Millie looked at Gorge with a bit more of an understanding. Well, you can't blame me for playing some cards, especially with the group you walked in with. You don't know who you're dealing with. Well, we're on a team, Sly concluded, so we can drop the pesky game of wordplay. Right? Gorge rose his hands in defeat. I see your point. Millie muttered, and both men turned towards her. What about food? You make an excellent point, miss. Sly nodded in appreciation. I'm sure many people are asking the same thing. Want to go find the answer to that? To what? Millie asked. To food, of course. Sly replied enthusiastically. What? You going to just walk out and ask around? Gorge asked doubtfully. I don't see why not, Sly challenged. We strolled on in here pretty easily. Who's to say we can't just stroll out? I mean, true enough, I guess, Gorge replied, not seeing a decent counterpoint. Then it's decided. Let's get going. Before the others could say anything, Sly yelled, Amon! A giant appeared a few moments later and Millie recognized him. He was the man that Sly climbed up to play his saxophone at the front of the gate. Amon stood at about 6'6", with short black hair, yellow eyes, and light brown skin. He also seemed like a very charming man. Care for some fresh air? Sly asked Amon. Amon sighed. If you believe that's wise. Sly, Amon, Gorge, and Millie left the barracks without much notice, and Millie instantly regretted it. She was freezing once again. They noticed one guard nearby. The guard was dressed in lighter armor than the others they had seen. The armor had a grayish tint to it, with streaks of yellow scattered around. The guard also had a large rifle slung over their shoulder. The guard gave them a nod as they approached, with Sly in the lead. Hey, Sly greeted. What's up? The guard returned in a friendly tone. The guard rose his hands to his helmet, and it began to depressurize. The helmet was removed to reveal a young man in his mid-20s. He had pretty messy light gray hair. His eyes were silver like the moon, and his skin was very pale. A bit more respectable to talk face-to-face without the helmet. Sly rose an eyebrow. Respectable? Yep, that's what I said. Why would you respect a group of thugs? Gorge asked. Thugs is a pretty heavy-handed word, don't you think? Name's Malcolm, by the way. Okay, Malcolm, I'll bite. What's going on? Sly asked. Malcolm shrugged. Not too sure. Any other questions? Listen here, buddy, Gorge replied, getting a bit annoyed. Do we have free reign of the facility? Sly cut in. Our barracks were unlocked, or was that just a mistake? Malcolm shook his head. No mistake. Any place that's unlocked, you can access. I just wouldn't go into the other team's barracks. Are we bloody prisoners here? Gorge growled. I wouldn't say prisoners, but you guys can't necessarily leave, Malcolm admitted. So, yeah. Real helpful, Gorge muttered sarcastically. How about food? Millie said in a daze. She was also getting annoyed, but mostly because no one was getting to the important topic. She was freezing, tired, and hungry. Malcolm snapped his fingers. Right, the utilities. The mess hall is by the central tower. The showers and toilets and such are in that area as well. Showers, Gorge exclaimed. Sly put his hand on Millie's shoulder. We'll head to the mess hall in a moment, he promised. He turned back to Malcolm. Anything else we should know? Malcolm put his hand on his chin, thinking. Near the back of this place, you can get some new clothes. You can also wash your old ones. He looked over at Millie. You can get something that can warm you up too. That coat looks like it's not doing quite the trick anymore. Anything else for this orientation? Gorge joked. Nothing else that I can think of, Malcolm replied, not seeming bothered by Gorge's remarks. Sly nodded. Thanks, Malcolm. I appreciate it. Malcolm jolted in surprise. Not a problem. Sly turned back to the group. You two go on ahead. Amon and I will head back to relay this to everyone else. Gorge nodded. Okay. Let's get going then, Pinky. I'm not very fond of the name, Millie grumbled. They made their way to the central tower. She knew the nickname was never going to change. She never liked it. Pinky was an easy name kids would come up with to get under her skin. It always worked. Yet, when Gorge used it, it helped make this horrible situation a bit tolerable, in a strange kind of way.